we're now going to come on to perhaps the theme that I suppose is most in the public perspective, which is regulation and identity. Identity is an even more important theme than it was 20, 30 years ago. And that also is one of the big challenges, I think, that the industry faces in terms of verification and immutability, if you like, of identity. So to talk about that, we have Nathaniel Tsang Mang Kin of IAIN. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much.
So, hello everybody. Just to make sure, a slide, click, go. So, I am Nathaniel, and I am one of the co-founders of IAME. We're a small blockchain company. We just started up, and we're based out of Mauritius. So, Mauritius. So if you're asking whether I can see the beach from my office, the answer is yes. Go. So today I'm here to talk to you about regulation identification, which is, according to top industry leaders, the most unsexy and unappealing of all topics in blockchain. So we've had speakers, John, before, talking about protocols. Then we had Gilbert talking about AI. So we've seen it all. Distributed ledgers, smart contract, dApps. The blockchain is exploding. So many things are happening right now. So many things. Anything you can imagine is being created right now. This is the equivalent of the internet in 1995, and it's going to get bigger. So why do we need to talk about regulation and identification when we're talking about tech? It's very simple, anonymity. So when Satoshi built the first Bitcoin, or the white paper for Bitcoin, he put something very, very important in it, which was anonymity. Why? To protect the user. So if you have ever transacted in cryptocurrency, you know what I mean by anonymity. It means that when a cryptocurrency moves from one person to another, it's just two addresses. You don't exactly know who that person is. It could be anyone, but you don't know who the owner is. So this is anonymity. So what is the problem with anonymity? Well, here's the thing. Anonymity in the, let's call it, regulated world is blasphemy. I mean, what government would want you to conduct all your transactions anonymously? I mean, how would they tax you if you're anonymous? So these are the real facts about anonymity. So many things being conducted by a very small portion of a community, like drug dealing. You've heard of Silk Road, Alphabet, people buying, selling drugs, and even weapons for cryptocurrencies. Extortion, one of the worst one. There's another worst one. So one of the worst one. So if you are in the UK, if you've been in the UK, so you've seen the ransomware situation that happened with the NHS in October 2017. That was awful. So people hijacking the whole system of the NHS and asking for cryptocurrency as payment. This was really, really bad. Tax evasion. I'm not going to point fingers, so I'm just going to do like this. Some people own cryptocurrency trying to bypass capital controls or try to not pay the taxes. This is something very common, but these are all the problems that arise out of anonymity. And these are the problems that can only be cleared with identification. So, regulatory approach. So I'm here to talk about regulatory approach, but to tell you exactly how the regulators should approach something would be claiming I'm, like all wise and almighty, and I know exactly how to regulate cryptocurrency, which I don't. But what I do know is what they should not be doing, because it's easier at this stage when you're in such an early venture to tell people this is definitely something you should not be doing. First thing, make it illegal. We've seen it. China did it, India did it, and it kind of like backfired. Instead of being able to learn how to deal with it, all that happened was you drove the whole thing underground. So instead of having people, ordinary, honest people, use it and learn about the technology, you've driven cryptocurrency into the underground market, where people are using it for things that we should not be doing. Money laundering, financing of terrorism, all these things. Build one big database. So this is one answer that I've been getting from a lot of regulators, be it from the US side or Asian or African, European side. Everybody wants to build one huge database for cryptocurrency where everybody puts their ID, their information, and all their crypto addresses. This is very, very bad idea. So if you're a regulator, this is one thing you should not be doing. Why? Because we all know, everybody who is in the business, that holding a database is the best way to get hacked. Because once you hold that database, you have a big target on your back saying, hack me. And once you get hacked, all your users lose. Chain it down. So what I mean by chain it down is when we've seen the regulators trying to understand, what is blockchain, what is Bitcoin, so often out of, let's call it, purely defensive reflex, we just try to chain it down and put some rules which actually do not fit into the technology. I've had a chat with a guy who told me that he wanted to stop blockchain by blocking IP addresses. And he didn't realize that it was a peer-to-peer system, and that blocking the IPs would not work. So all of this needs to be changed. Oh, make everything public. So everybody thinks, okay, blockchain is the cure for everything. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to build a huge identity database and put everything online, which really, 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 really is a very bad idea. Because if I have my ID, which I'm trying to protect from identity frauds, I definitely don't want to make that public. So it's not looking so good anymore, because most of the things that I've just said are things that the regulators are trying to do. And we need to be able to tell them, we want to be regulated, but this area of where you're going is a no-no. So this is what regulation is all about when you talk about blockchain. It is about opening a dialogue. So the regulators, please, you should come and talk to us. Talk to us who are in the industry. Talk to us who know how the technology works and how to better regulate it. Because honestly, anybody in the blockchain industry, set aside the scammers, they all want regulation. We want things to be done by the books. We want our users to be protected. We want our investors to be protected. We want to run a legitimate business. So, enough about regulation. I'm going to talk more about myself. So, I am me. So, I am me, as the name says, it's something, it means I am me. It's about identification, but the smart kind of identification, the one that doesn't put the user's information at risk. So how we do it, there's 3 main points to I am me. Number 1 is decentralized data, not database. So you've all heard about decentralized database, where you keep a little bit of data here, left and right. So when people talk about decentralized database, sometimes what they mean is, for example, I keep the ID of all people in this row in this database, all the ID of people in this, the middle row in the second database, and all the ID of the people in the third row in that database. This is decentralization, but this is not smart decentralization. Because what happens is you just place 3 targets to be hacked. And if one of them gets hacked, the people inside the database gets breached. So what is decentralizing data as opposed to database is, here's the thing. I'm going to take the first 2 letters of this lady's name and put it in database A. I'm going to take your date of birth, the last 2 digits, put it in that database. I'm going to take half of your ID and put it in another database. So this is what we mean by decentralized data. Don't just put things into separate places, but break them up. And then you put them in different places. Because if one database gets compromised, then all the hackers get are fragments, pieces of puzzles, which means nothing to them. And if they are an avid puzzle solver, go ahead. It's going to be one hell of a ride. Number 2 is identification as a protocol. So everybody looks at identification as this very formal thing. I take my ID, I give it to left, right, you know. So what we do is we build identification as a protocol. So what is a protocol? It is something on top of something else. In this particular case, we build identification as a protocol on payment. So what it means is when I'm doing a payment, the identity gets confirmed together. I don't need to run 2 separate transactions. Third is metadata identity. So we're also used to this concept of identity being, you know, a passport, a driver's license, you know, those plain old things. But in the day of, in today's world, there's something more. You can create an identity, make sure that someone is really who he is from metadata. That is, from your transaction, you can create an identity. From your behavior, you can create an identity. And this identity that we create doesn't need to be a full data set explaining exactly where you went left and right, but saying something very simple like, this person has been buying things, so he is a legitimate person. So I'm going to briefly introduce you to IAME, about what we do. So we have 2 concepts which are core to the project. So the first one being what we call fragmented identity. So just to give you an example, let me find something. Oh, so many stuff in my pocket. Cool. So I'm not going to show you my ID card because it's a bit dangerous. So I'm going to show you my Oyster card. OK. So think of my Oyster card like my ID, the one that I give and I show to everybody. Here, I am Nathaniel, look at it. But the problem is, if I've shown my ID to 1,000 people here, well, I see people taking pictures, which, you know, is very dangerous to me, which is why I never took out the real one. But you take a picture, you Photoshop it, you take out my pretty face, and put somebody else's face. And then you go to the bank and take a mortgage. This is the problem with identification, the requirement to pass that whole information to somebody else. So right now, with the 1,000 of you guys in the room, I've just created 1,000 points of weakness in my system. But is there another way to do it? So what if I cut this ID into 1,000 pieces, and then I give each little fragment to a different person, and you guys tell me what's on it? So what happens is I've achieved the same process of showing the whole thing to one person, but actually, I've shown it to 1,000 people, but only I have seen the whole thing. Only I hold my whole ID. Every single one of you guys have identified me, but you have no idea what my whole name is, because maybe one of you guys, you got my first letter of my name, and this lady over there got the letters of, you know, of my last name, and somebody else got like the middle of my ID. But this is a whole identification without the need to show the whole thing. So this is decentralization of identification at its best, breaking things into pieces so that you remove the security risk completely out, which is a bit of what we're trying to do. We're not trying to be hack-proof, because hack-proof means building higher walls. And you know, every time you build higher walls, you need double the encryption. Somebody else comes with higher ladders, you know? They start with quantum computers, we're going to brute force whatever code, whatever security I'm using. So what we're doing at IAME is we are changing the whole process from hack-proof to hack-worthless. You're free to hack our system. Go ahead. And all you'll find are fragments, which will mean nothing to you. Not even fragments belonging to the same ID, but fragments belonging to multiple IDs. So think of it like you're hacking a system, and what you're getting is 1,000 puzzle blocks all shuffled together. And actually, what we do to make it even secure is that we don't use the whole puzzle box. Some guy just want to say, hey, I just want to identify my name. So you're getting 1,000 incomplete puzzle blocks. Crowdsourced validation. So, like I said, we take the ID, cut into pieces, and give it to the people to verify. Why? Because I hate lawyers. So if you've ever been to a lawyer, a notary, you have a guy sitting in front of you, smiling, and charging you like $500 to just check that a photocopy matches your passport. So crowdsourced validation is about taking the same process that is being done by lawyers, notaries, accountants at $500 an hour and giving it to the people. And what makes it beautiful is, while it might be complex to identify the contents of a passport, because you need to understand, okay, this is a passport, how it works. Now imagine like you're identifying fragments, letters, numbers. By breaking the whole process into little jobs, you can make your kids work now. So this is crowdsourced validation. You take a complex process and break it so simple and so small that even kids can do it. Child labor, time to put them at work. Cool. So where are we? What are we doing? So like I said, we are a company, purely development, and we'd like to put our money where our mouth is, or in that case, put our app where our mouth is. So we already built basic stuff, proof of concept with payment, and we're building the whole identity as a protocol on top. Because, like I said earlier, you can't build payment without identity, and you can't build identity without payment, because it all goes together. So, recap. Is identification good for crypto? Yes. Regulation? Yes. But smart identification and regulation, definitely yes. So it's not only about identification and regulation, it's about doing the right way. Because if you do it the right way, you can take the whole industry and create it into a new pillar of the economy. But if you do it the wrong way, you might just be able to, kill the golden goose that's going to propel us into the next century. So I had this slide for questions, but I think I'm going to take questions from the audience. So feel free to come see me after the event for questions, or just go on our website. I think it's somewhere here. So on our website, there's this really nasty thing called intercom. So you click it, and you chat it, and my phone rings. Cool. So thank you very much. Here you go, Bob.
Thank you very much indeed.